out to Socrates. Socrates still trying to get the opening. Oh, Socrates! Whoa!
And there it is. The crazy gang have beaten the Culture Club.
Maggie Thatcher, can you hear me? Maggie Thatcher, your boys took a hell of a beating. Your boys took a hell of a beating.
Welcome to Your Boys Took a Hell of a Beating. It's Stoke City. It's 1984-85. It's everything ingloriously glorious about a football season. POMO. 3 wins, 17 points, possibly 18 points.
17 points. 17. And on reflection, it's hard to believe we got that many.
But wins on Boxing Day against Manchester United, which is possibly one of the, in a world of a very Manchester United-y decade, the 1980s, as far as Manchester United is concerned. It doesn't come much more Manchester United-y than, obviously, blowing that lead at the start of 85-86, but to lose to Stoke City on Boxing Day. Arsenal, though, were another one that fell victim of
that season. There was 3 teams: Sheffield Wednesday, Manchester United, and Arsenal. And that Manchester United team was a really good side. They won the FA Cup that year when the FA Cup meant a lot more.
They did, beating Liverpool in the semi-finals as well. In a way. So, Stoke's not all bad for Stoke City. Our guest tonight, our contributor tonight, Joe Byatt, Stoke City supporter, lives out in Brisbane. Yeah, he's been such a great contributor online with us when we've been posting the podcast.
Thank you.
We couldn't not have Joe. Joe's part of the furniture of your Boys Took a Hell of a Beating, and now he's here as well. When we started this podcast, and this is the Stoke City module, 1984-85. This was one that I was really eager to do. Because I've just been, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but I just find this type of thing utterly as fascinating as the glory. It's the haphazard nature of a season like this, and Cambridge United are another one that I've always had that fascination of around about the same time, where they had 2 epic back-to-back relegations, where over the course of 2 seasons, I think they won about 8 league games. And
in our case, it was sort of self-inflicted because, as you'll know, in the 70s we had a really good team, right? We won the League Cup, a few FA Cup semi-finals, and in 75 we'd mounted a title challenge. And then the roof blew off the stand, and so we had to sell a lot of the team. Now, a lot of people think that we had to sell the team to play for the new stand. In reality, the bank were getting very nervous about the loans, so the fire sale may well have had to happen anyway. And it started in late 1976, and we had to sell the great Jimmy Green off, which still shatters me to this day. At least I'm not carrying it. It was only 50 years ago, And everything changed, and that led to relegation. But we bounced back quite quickly, albeit by way of a catastrophic FA Cup defeat to Blythe Spartans. And Alan Durbin was appointed, and we got promoted in his first full season. So after 2 seasons in the second division, we were back in the top flight and relatively comfortable. We stayed up on the last day in 1982 when we beat West Bromwich Albion, and it was our legendary Denny Smith's final game, and it was lifted on shoulders by the fans. Bearing in mind the trouble at the Hawthorns with Leeds a few days before, I've always wondered if West Bromwich Albion took a dive because we relegated Leeds. And the other memorable thing is my dad being delighted because I got him Cyril Regis' autograph. That's another thing I remember about that game. And then 82 and 83, Richie Barker, the manager, after being in the doldrums a bit under pressure all season, we built a really thrilling team with exciting players. We had an international midfield. And, we played some fantastic football. There was a legendary 4-4 draw at home to Luton. We beat Arsenal on the first day 2-1 with Mark Chamberlain, who was one of the most thrilling debut performances you'll ever see. And it's to this day, I still think Mark Chain on form was the most exciting player you'll ever see. And it was just thrilling. And, we played so many good teams. I mean, Watford were runners-up that season. And we actually abolished them 4-0. And it was so easy. We were just fantastic. And it was really exciting. Now, we were running for Europe in March, but poor form at the end meant we dropped off and finished 13th. But we'd had a really enjoyable season. We'd played good teams, matched them, won some really entertaining games. And so things were looking up. But the problem is, Richie Barker went on a course in the close season in 1983. And that changed everything. Because now people say that the course was run by Howard Wilkinson. I'm not sure if that's accurate. But the course was to espouse the values of POMO, position of maximum opportunity. Now, that was the method by which Watford had so much success. But there's one big factor missing in it. That being, Watford had the right players to apply that system. And any team, and I'll probably repeat this with monotonous regularity in the coming minutes, any team needs to play to its own strengths. So Barker chose to ignore the international midfield and just hit long balls forward, aiming for the POMO. And it's pretty, and if it's not working, it's pretty bleak. And if it is working, you don't get much of the ball. So some of our very good ball players, I felt, felt a lot of sympathy for them because the swashbuckling stuff from the year before had disintegrated, and he willingly disintegrated. He willfully stopped the system that was working well, and he could have built on it from there. So 83, 84 became a pretty bleak old trudge. And I remember thinking that it couldn't have been much fun for the players. Because I had a lot of sympathy, particularly for Mickey Thomas, because Mickey Thomas, loved being involved in the game, loved being involved on the ball. I loved, exciting the crowd, and he ended up just sort of having to chase the ball and hope for the best. And I felt a lot of sympathy for him, particularly. And although I felt a lot for that midfield, I mean, in those days, I used to go watch Stoke training when on school holidays. And my mate said to me once, he said, "Hey, have you noticed? They don't seem to have a laugh anymore." And he was right. They didn't seem to be enjoying being footballers anymore. And that's such a shame because it can be a great profession. And the year before, they were enjoying it. They were all laughing. So you have gregarious characters like Mickey Thomas and George Berry, who the year before had been mucking around, having a laugh, and it must have been a great place to work. And from there, they just sort of the dull, artless lottery of the long ball game, hoping for rebounds, and it just wasn't what we could do well. So we trudged on, and the manager was sacked. Richie Barker was sacked early December. Form did improve a little bit, but results didn't. And we headed into 1984 needing a miracle. Then in late January, the miracle arrived in the shape of Alan Hudson. Now, Alan Hudson is one of the greatest geniuses to ever step onto a football pitch. Even though in his advancing years, he had the ability to pass a ball 2 yards and change the whole context of a move. And it was just remarkable that the confidence he gave all the young players there too. And they looked up to him, and he thrived on that responsibility. And after a turbulent few years in his career, it was back to playing in the first division and leading a team. And it really showed we were such a different team. And we went on a great run and stayed up on the last day. And that run had some great moments in it. One being that in April, I think it was April, you'd know the date more than me, Stephen, Liverpool reached their 4th European Cup final away to Dynamo Bucharest. On Saturday, they came to Stoke, and we deservedly beat them 2-0. And the thing is, you might think that, well, Liverpool took the foot off the gas because they reached the European Cup final. They were miles ahead in the league. It was a question of when they settled it. But they were seething. And one of the most famous things about the game was that Graham Souness was so distressed and agitated, he punched the window through the dressing room because he was so annoyed. And it made it sweeter because this team full of great stars, Dalglish, Souness, rushed the lot, and we deservedly beat them. And that meant a lot to us. We ended up sort of staying up on the last day because we beat Wolves 4-0. And Wolves were already relegated, who we beat them. Paul Maguire scored 4 goals, and his reward was we couldn't afford to keep him, so we had to let him go. And you realise how bleak the financial system was. We reached the Youth Cup final that year and lost to Everton. So everything indicates we had some pretty stylish players coming through. But a lot of them didn't reach the potential because, being in such a bleak situation. And actually, in the semi-final of that Youth Cup run, we beat Arsenal. And that Arsenal team we beat, some of them played Anfield in 89 when they won the league. So that's how good those players were that our youths beat. But a lot of them didn't really fulfill the potential. And like I say, it couldn't have helped being in such a downcast club. But one thing I'll say about them all is those players between 1983 and 85, however bleak it was, have nothing but respect for them because you can never, ever question their effort. Their effort was there, the spirit was there, the soul was there. They really, really did all they could to play for Stoke City and give the best they could. And I'll never forget that and always respect them for it, however much of a trudge it must have been.
Absolutely. I mean, I'd say I have nothing but admiration for this side. I find that it's that utter, desolation, but it's kind of like there's a unity within desolation that football provides. Just looking back at that 83-84 season, that great escape, Joe, before we, because you have to, I want to bring the joy into this as well as the dejection. It's just worth noting that, Stoke, late January, were 8 points adrift of safety.
Yeah.
In terms of great escapes, this is truly one of the greatest, without doubt. They went on to win 10 of their last 18. It is, and say that win against the European Cup final and treble-bound Liverpool, that really were up for it that day. Really were up for it that day, but were well and deservedly beaten.
Yeah, and it was, I think, and it was just like the introduction of Hudson, and suddenly these young guns were actually playing football and passing to each other, and Hudson, and the difference he made, and obviously some of his pace had gone, but he could just but it was how fast he thought, not how fast he ran, and he could hold everything together just by being there, and he'd point and lead. And it was so vital, and it was so important to us, and that was such a pivotal point, it was vital, and that run at the end, it was just. I think in the penultimate game we won 1-0 at Luton, right? Now I've never seen the goal because it's the day before everything was televised and I didn't go, but apparently Ian Painter scored and it was way offside. So we got a bit of luck there, must admit. And, there was a game against Ipswich where we scored really late on. And just things worked out for us that, early in the season, they might have worked out if we were playing the proper system, Another thing about 83-84, in keeping with the era when marketing started ruling everything, and the era of Thatcher employing Saatchi and Saatchi, whoever's decision it was, I don't know, but for some reason, only they know, they decided to employ a PR company called Tactics. And that's what led to the non-Stoke City shirt with the awful red pinstripes. And apparently that's what they were all wearing in the discos in 1983. And why they thought that was a good idea, ditching your tradition. And this terrible cheesy banner hanging off the Stoke End stand that said, proud to be a Potter. I mean, God, you don't... That's pretty insulting. Don't tell us what we're proud to be. We've lived this. We've always lived this life. This part of our being, and that seemed to contribute to the downcast spiral. And just before the 83-84 season, somebody from the club took the unprecedented step of saying, "We're confident we're heading into a new era for the football club. We're all excited." I thought, well, it was a new era, all right. They got that right, didn't they? But I'll say now that if he hadn't gone on the course, and when you follow the POMO, the Charles Hughes mantra, as was, you follow it with evangelical devotion, and you don't do any of that. Players get hooked for playing short balls, because it all has to be long and it all has to be to this certain area of the pitch. And it was pretty bleak at times, until the arrival of Alan Hudson, who, rescued us, or the re-emergence of Hudson.
This dot-by-dot nature that takes Stoke to this point in 84-85.
Yeah.
There's so many layers. Like you say, Youth Cup final. You've got kind of like absolutely delightful football in 82-83. Pomo's thrown in for 6 months. You've got the great escape at the end of 83-84. It's worth also illuminating the players, the calibre of the players involved at Stoke during those years.
Yeah.
Not all of them stretching to that, but Garth Crooks had been part of that side in the early 1980s and moved on to Tottenham.
Yeah, he left for Spurs in 1980. Yeah, we got promoted in 79, and then he left for Spurs. Adrian.
Yeah,
Inchy was class.
You've mentioned Chamberlain. Chamberlain, fantastic. What a wonderful play. Lee Chapman for a while. It was this revolving door of huge talents that Stoke had. But also kind of like it comes down to the chairman as well. I mean, the chairman, this epic kind of like an elongated episode of EastEnders transferred to kind of Victoria Ground. Percy Axon. And the death of Percy Axon in 83. There's the death of two chairmen thrown into this as well, Joe.
I don't know, but I imagine the stress and strain of running poor football club couldn't have helped their health. But I don't know. I mean, I remember it happening, but in those days, directors and chairmen and owners got a lot less attention than they do now.
Unless they were a Peter Swales or a Ken Bates who and a Robert Maxwell, all of those who wanted to draw.
Oh, Robert Maxwell. Yeah, Robert Oxford and Derby, and those people. And that's the thing. But for it all, I was pleased that we didn't have one of those egomaniac owners just abusing the football club for their own pretty little, egos and things.
Absolutely. I mean, within this as well, Joe. I mean, the early to mid 1980s, it's a social era of decay for anywhere outside the London bubble and the southeast. Stoke was no different in this respect.
Well, Stoke was probably one of the posters for it because, I mean, 84-85, the miners' strike, Stoke was still a big mining city. Pottery as well. The pottery industry was sort of on the wane. So it was a bleak era. I wonder, sometimes you think that the football on display, or the poor football and doing the best they can but failing, was emblematic of the entire social outlook of that era in areas like Stoke-on-Trent. And not just Stoke, other industrial areas. It was just a really, it was a bleak time. And ideally, you can look at it as a bleak time, but you can look to your football team to raise your spirits and cheer you up and something to look forward to at the weekend and things like that. But it wasn't the case for us in the mid-80s.
No, not quite. I mean, moving into that 84-85 season, there is that early win against Sheffield Wednesday. How long is it going into that season where the penny drops? Hang on, this
October, I think, because early on, we didn't do too badly. We got some draws, got some much needed draws, but we only won one. Then there was a spell where I know twice that season we lost 10 games in a row. And there was a spell, and I think it was in about October when you realised we're doomed. We really were doomed. And nobody was going to save us this time. And it became clear.
Bill Asprey as a manager, I mean, he's come in and he's overseen that great escape. It's an utterly thankless task for him, though, 84-85, isn't it? I mean, talking a no-win situation. And another player, I mean, the fact that he has to, he's having to kind of like, to get the type of, to fill the positions that he needs to fill. He's desperate in need of a striker, for instance. Keith Birchin comes in, but it's very much at the, he has to sacrifice Robbie James to get that signing over the line. But there's also kind of like the bright element that you've got Steve Bold emerging. It's I always find teams like this and seasons like this amazing for seeing who is kind of like on the periphery of this side. Who is a passenger? No, passenger is not the right word.
At that point, Steve Bold was actually right back. Mick Mills moved him to centre half, and when he did, Mick Mills said he'll play for England, and he did, because he was a real classy centre half. Steve Bold.
Yes,
the best bit of business that George Graham ever did at Arsenal was him and Lee Dixon from us for a combined fee of 790,000. That's probably the best business he did. And we missed him, but Lee Dixon particularly is one player. When he came to us, the moment he played, you knew he wouldn't be with us long because he's so much better than playing in the second division. And he went to Arsenal, won plenty of medals, and it's no surprise because he was class. There was a game against Leeds where he scored an overhead kick from the edge of the box, and it was just fantastic. If we'd had him in 84-85 and that form, perhaps it wouldn't have been so bleak.
Yeah, might have been a bit different. But just going back to Bill Asprey, what are Stoke City, generally Stoke City supporters' thoughts on a figure like Bill Asprey? He oversees this 84-85 season, but he's pulled off that great escape in 83-84.
Yeah.
In legacy terms, where does Bill Asprey fit amongst this?
I think we're probably with some warmth and with some sympathy. We had a commercial manager named Dudley Koenig who wrote a really good book about that era at the football club. In the build-up to 84-85, he saw that Bill Asprey was treating an injured player. It seems that we couldn't afford a physio, I would assume. And he went and put £1,000 on Stoke to be relegated, because how can you possibly compete in the top division when the manager's having to do everything? And near the end of his reign, he was really ill. The strain affected him as well as directors we've referred to earlier. And it was just, I think we'd have sympathy with him. I mean, you can't really blame him for much. And also, if the job had gone out to the general football world, I'd be surprised if anybody else would have really wanted it.
It was definitely a thankless task in that particular season.
Yeah.
I mean, just worth breaking down some of the elements of this season. Asprey's handed the job on a full-time basis after the great escape of 83-84.
Yeah.
There's the loss of Paul Maguire and Peter Hampson, who literally basically released from the club. To cut wages away. That sacrificing of Robbie James to QPR in order to bring in Keith Birchin. The chaos that is in high quantity. There's 5 different goalkeepers that are deployed across the season.
Yeah.
We've mentioned just 3 wins all season. Only 24 goals scored, 91 conceded. Of the 42 league games that Stoke play in this campaign, they failed to score in 25 of them. That is a work of art, this, Joe. There is something on. There was something else. It was artistic. This was say early on that for me, I am in awe of this campaign. I don't mean that in a bad way. I just think such a standout event. It's such a standout camp of this season. Standout campaigns can be
spells when we lost 10 games in a row, and the first one was leading up to Christmas. The only high point of that was we played Queen's Park Rangers, and our left back, Tony Spearing, got sent off for staring at the referee. And that was a rare high point because, it was because something to remember it by. Otherwise, there was nothing. I think we got a draw at Chelsea just before Christmas. These things were just not much to cling to at all, other than, when it came to like saying that we're planning for next season, as a lot of clubs do when they've been relegated. Stoke was saying that in January when we went out the FA Cup. We're planning for next season now. You think, what about all these games? Well, they knew, didn't they, that we were done for. We were just plodding through.
Absolutely. I mean, Asprey's relieved of his duties in the April. As you mentioned, Mitt Mills comes in. Ian Painter's the top scorer with 9 in all competitions, 6 in the league, 4 from the penalty spot. And another under pressure chairman in Frank Edwards dies not long after the end of the season. Joe, this of all the events of so many kind of like seasons and teams go under the microscope, and we see them now in kind of like documentary form on be it Netflix or whatever. Stoke City 1984-85 and the lead up to it. It deserves a cinematic big screen, or at least TNT Sports taking a look at it.
And it's just a catalogue of disaster. Now, early in March, we were playing at home to Spurs, and it was 0-0. Barry Siddle was in goal for us, and it was a very comical error. And I seem to remember, and all the people around me, standing around me, laughing as Garth Crooks nipped in for Spurs and scored the winner. And it's just like one thing after another. There was a game against West Brom where West Brom went down to 9 men and we drew 0-0, right? And we were all happy with that. We thought that was great.
Really, truly remarkable. I mean, the 5 goalkeeper, you mentioned Barry Siddle there, he plays 15 of these league games, and he plays the most of the league games of the goalkeepers. Peter Fox, the legendary Peter Fox, who I can remember as a Panini sticker collecting kid, getting Peter Fox in every 3 packs, and you couldn't give them away, your Spurs away at school, because he tipped up so often, and he was just such an emblematic figure of the 1980s for being Stoke City's long-serving goalkeeper, but also such a regular in Panini stickers. Paul Barron. Joe Corrigan for 9 games.
Yeah, Joe Corrigan was playing when we beat Man United on Boxing Day. That's what.
There's a determined fella on Boxing Day. We've mentioned Steve Bold, Aaron Callahan, Alan Dodd, Paul Dyson, Wayne Ebanks, Chris Hemming, Robbie James until sold, Tony Spearing, Carl Beeston, George Berry, Alan Hudson, Chris Maskery, Sammy McElroy, Steve Parkin, Terry Williams, Keith Birchin, who manages 2 league goals for his 25 appearances, 24 of those from the start.
The thing with Keith Birchin is, I tell you, nobody's ever celebrated a goal like Keith Birchin. There's one game, not this season, a few seasons after, where we were 4-0 down at West Bromwich Albion, and he got one back late on, and he celebrated as if he just won the World Cup, and he did a Tordelli, and we were losing 4-1, and it was just fantastic. He loved scoring goals. It was great.
Outstanding. Mark Chamberlain has mentioned Phil Heath, Brendan O'Callaghan, Ian Pinter, Carl Saunders. It's such a scattergun. I mean, just looking at the numbers here in terms of league games played, Steve Bold with 38 league appearances of the 42 is the highest. George Berry plays 32 times in the league. You've got 34 for Chris Maskery, 34 for Sammy McElroy, and 34 for Phil Heath. No one else. Oh, Ian Painter, 38. No one else breaks the 30 game barrier in the league. So this revolving door nature, and especially those goalkeepers, is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it was disruptive and disrupted, and it was chaos. But all these years later, can look back on it with warmth.
Absolutely. I mean, Steve Bold chips in with 3 goals there as well. That makes him the joint second top scorer for Stoke City in the league all season, alongside Paul Dyson. Both of them defenders. There is only Ian Painter that scores more for Stoke that season.
Yeah, and the last game of the season was Friday night home to Coventry, and Ian Painter could have scored the goal that relegated Coventry, but he hit the bar with a penalty. And that went. And Coventry had been in the top division for years, and they just plodded on, and they'd never done much. Probably they'd say the same about Stoke, I suppose. But and he could have relegated them. And they were, you never known a load of supporters, their supporters celebrated that penalty miss as if, as it, again, like a Tardelli.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it will be another 16 years until Coventry were relegated. Just under 7,000 at the Victoria to watch that Friday night game for Coventry.
And that was our last top flight game at home and for 23 years.
It was indeed. I mean, going back to the start of this campaign, Joe. First 8 league games, you only lose 3 of them. 2 of them, one away at Luton Town on the opening day. You lose home to Aston Villa, and no surprise for any club to go to Highbury and lose. It's no shame in doing that. There's the win against Sheffield Wednesday, and there's 4 draws there: Leicester City, Norwich City, Sunderland, and Nottingham Forest. It is an admirable start. That's not a terrible start.
It was, and also partly because we're up against it, but we dug in and got some points, and we thought, well, maybe if we could just add a bit to this, just score a few goals, we might be able to get a few wins off and just stay safe. But no, it was never going to happen. Really, that was just naivety, the naivety of adolescence.
Within this, Joe, lead us through those 3 glorious league victories that season. 2-1 at home to Sheffield Wednesday on September the 1st. 2-1 at home to Manchester.
The Sheffield Wednesday one, where it was we'd had lots of players who had the flu, and I think we actually applied for the game to be postponed, but Ever Helpful, the Football League, refused. And a battling performance. We got through 2-1. And Paul Dyson was sent off for headbutting our ex-forward Lee Chapman, which is a pretty memorable moment, really. And Dyson, who was never that popular with the Stoke fans. I liked him, but nobody else did. And that's the biggest reception he ever got from the Stoke fans. He got warm applause as he walked off for that. And for some that moment, I thought, hey, we were all right. We've won. We've got 3 points out of 9. Things might be all right. But, by the time we got to the next victory on Boxing Day, we were well and truly done for. And so, Man United on Boxing Day, they took an early lead. I think Stapleton scored. And the script from there. And but they didn't add to it. And in the second half, we got some good enthusiasm going and some noise going from the crowd because we were only 1-0 down. And we got a penalty, and Ian Painter put it away, and it was and it was crazy. It was fantastic, especially as I keep saying, some of these Man United players were really good players in this really good team. And a few minutes later, Carl Saunders, the legend that he is, actually puts the winner in, and the whole place was bedlam. It was absolutely fantastic, and for a moment, you just forgot about the league table because it was so happy to beating them as well, and to be winning and to be getting a big scoop. And I think even then, knowing that the season had gone, but it was just a really, really thrilling game, a really happy, exciting day, a rare one that season. And then we moved to late March, and Arsenal.
Just throwing the biggest attendance of the season at the Victoria as well for that.
All right, box. Okay. What was it?
21,013.
Yeah, that's not too bad. In those days, crowds were on the wane, weren't they?
That was the biggest of the season. It shades the visit of Liverpool on the 3rd of November, which was 20,567.
Yeah, hey, the Liverpool game, Liverpool only beat us in the last minute with a Ronnie Whelan curler. Yeah,
we were a bit dysfunctional throughout the autumn, but yeah. So yeah, that could have been your 4th win, that one, Joe. If the wind had blown in a different direction.
Yeah, I think you were missing Souness, I think. And And then we got to late March and we beat Arsenal 2-0 in front of the Match of the Day cameras. And that was another one. After the game, it was, we were all really happy, but it was more like laughing than cheering because it was just so funny. And how much Arsenal have felt to have gone to Stoke and lost to Stoke. But, but we did because, the players deserve those moments. And I hope they remember it as affectionately as we do, because not much was going on that season. There wasn't much positive about it at all. But, at least we scraped some joy out of it all. And those 3 games, they were fun.
Yeah, I can imagine so. I mean, the wins aside, those 3 wins aside, we'll just have a quick look at the cups. And I know they didn't go far. The league, it was an exit at the hands of Rotherham United in what was often goes forgotten that the second round of the League Cup, I think the first round as well, were 2-legged events.
They were.
Rotherham United put paid to Stoke's hopes, a 2-1 defeat at home on the 26th of September, and a fortnight later a 1-1 draw at Millmore was enough to Stoke out at the hands of Rotherham United. While in the FA Cup, there was a 1-1 draw at Kenilworth Road to get them back to the Victoria for a replay 4 days later, where they're edged out 3-2. Just under 10,000, Joe. Were you at any of those cup games?
Yeah, I was at all the home ones. Yeah, I remember the Luton game was really snowy, and they might have even had an orange ball. Yeah, it wasn't a bad game, but we were up against it, and it was like a lot of games. It wasn't a bad game, I suppose, but it's just hopeless, really. But we lived to fight another day. And we still went again the week after and ended up just sort of, as the season wore on, just enjoyed watching the other teams. I remember near the end of the season being very impressed by a young Newcastle player named Chris Waddle. Whatever happened to him?
Whatever happened to Chris Waddle?
It was fantastic talent, yeah.
Just as a cursory quiz question for you, Joe. Do you know who you were... Because obviously the draw was made from a velvet bag on the Monday afternoon at lunchtime for the 4th round of the FA Cup. Do you know what the prize was going into the replay against Luton for the 4th round?
Liverpool?
No, it was Huddersfield Town at home.
Oh.
Town at home. Given that Luton would go on to reach the semi-finals this season.
Yeah.
Luton's progression beyond that, just as a point of interest for you, Watford were defeated in round 5. In the quarterfinals, it was the infamous Millwall night.
Oh yeah,
at Kenilworth Road before losing the semi-finals to Everton. If that 3rd round replay goes your way, do you see Stoke getting past Huddersfield?
No, not really. Not realistically, no. I think we were just too depleted and too... I mean, we couldn't get past Rotherham in the League Cup. So there's probably no real reason to think we could get past Huddersfield, Oh, then again, if we'd got past Luton, who knows?
Yeah, indeed. But yeah, always interesting, the sliding doors. The wins aside, Joe, of 1984-85, what are your most treasured memories of 1984-85?
Probably going the match with my mates at the time, the whole thing about going with your mates and watching the game. And I was coming to the end of school, and because I left school a week after the end of the season, and it's probably just the end of childhood, or and those moments. Just being with my mates, I think that's probably my happiest thing about it. Being your mate, and not really, and after a certain while, just the football became incidental to doing whatever you do, whatever you go there and talk about. And but having said that, the games we won meant so much. That's what we'll always come back to. There was a game early on when we came from behind and drew 2-2 against Sunderland. That was great because it was like we still had a bit of hope at that point. And it was like we were sort of resilient, like a normal football team. But, that didn't last long.
Indeed. I mean, just going back a year finally, Joe, just the Great Escape and that run to the FA Youth Cup final. I'll run you down the Stoke City side that played in those games. Richard Dawson, Terry Williams, Chris Hemming, Aaron Callahan, Neil Howell, Steve Parkin, Graham Shaw, Kenny O'Neill, John Chapman, Dave Sutton, Roger Johns, and Neil Mountford. And this is against an Everton side that we're throwing in. Certainly, Ian Marshall, who would go on, he would play, a little bit of first team football for Everton, but was such a, integral part of the Oldham side, the Oldham story later in the decade and into the 1990s. Played for Ipswich for so long. Rob Wakenshaw, who had such an incredible kind of introduction at Everton. With a goal against Manchester United and then kind of like disappeared, appeared in the flash of glory and then vanished. Neil Rimmer as well as part of that side. Yeah, the game itself, it was 2-2 at Goodison, which was a great result at Goodison.
Yeah, I went to the home game, the second leg. Yeah. And we lost 2-0, I think.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Hughes and Wakenshaw, just under 14,000 at the Victoria for that one.
Yeah, that's more than some of the first team games got.
Indeed, it was a bigger attendance than the first leg at Goodison, 9,000.
Yeah, so some of our players did end up having careers, and some of them became regulars for us. And you wonder how good they could have been at a different kind of club. But having said that, they've done something I've never done, and that's it. I'd have loved to have done. They played for Stoke City.
Absolutely. So I always say, when it comes to players, they did, no matter what they did in football, they did more than I did, most certainly. Moving on to our and finally section, Joe.
Yeah.
Stoke City, September the 1st, 1984. 2-1 winners at home to Sheffield Wednesday. It's a victory that sees Ashley's side occupying the dizzying heights of 18th in the First Division. In celebration, we're off to the cinema, Joe.
Okay.
I sent you a link. What do you fancy going watching at the cinema?
Well, this year, I remember the night before the FA Cup final, I went the pictures to see Footloose.
Footloose. Excellent.
And by coincidence, watched Places in the Heart the other night. Only the other night I watched it because my partner really loves it, and she encouraged me to watch it. I watched it. It's a quite good movie, a bit bleak at times, but also in some respects uplifting. Also, looking at the list we've got here, Purple Rain. Would anybody have watched Purple Rain and enjoyed it if they didn't like Prince's music?
This is true. This is very true.
That's one of the questions.
I didn't enjoy Prince's music at the time. There's one or two tunes I like now, but at the time I wasn't into. So I didn't watch Purple Rain because I wasn't a Prince aficionado. But yes, Purple Rain at number 3 in the box office charts.
You think, and Ghostbusters was a good laugh. But the thing is, it's got on the list you've said, I think it's USA because it's released on June the 8th.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But I remember watching it at Christmas time. So things released at different times then. You might
I think they'd often bring back, because this is an era before the multiplex cinema. So if you were lucky, you would have a local cinema that would have 3 screens, at least 2. So what they would often do around Christmas is kind of like what did we make money on through the year? Get that tape back out again. And
that explains a lot then.
They'd throw the big hitters back on at Christmas. But Ghostbusters is at number 1 in September 1984. The Karate Kid at number 4. The Woman in Red at number 5. Revenge of the Nerds. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, a good action film. Number 12. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. I mean, we mentioned it on one of these modules before. Is that it's the weaker link of the Indiana Jones initial trilogy, but it had an absolutely magnificent start to it, a ludicrously choreographed start to it, where it's the bit where he's delivering the emperor in the little jar, And then there's kind of like he drinks the poison. He needs the antidote that's in the vial. It ends on the dance floor. There's ice everywhere. He's chasing. It's an epically constructed and choreographed start to that film. Gremlins number 8 is in there.
Gremlins, yeah. I saw Gremlins at the pictures of that year. Now, Gizmo was the cheap little gremlin.
Yeah.
Gizmo. Is that where the term gizmo comes from when it comes to technology?
Maybe. It might well be. Or the technology term has been added to the fluffy character in order to sell it in shops for Christmas. Our Indiana Jones movie is in at number 12. Oxford Blue, at number 13. This is we've got Amadeus at number 23. I remember a lot of fuss around Amadeus. Yeah, and a lot of movies there that I cannot remember in the slightest.
Yeah, Revenge of the Nerds. Now, I've never seen it, but there's a film about the American cartoonist Harvey Pickard called American Splendor. And there's a part of that where that film is referred to, and it's really funny. That's the only reason I've heard of that film. It's because of the section of American Splendor.
In Revenge of the Nerds, it was one that my mum wasn't kind of like keen on spending money on. You can wait. You can wait for that to be on the TV, and I think it probably stank that. I don't ever remember it being on the TV, so I've not watched that one. But it was.
No, I've not seen it. I just know about it because of that passage. But it's at number 6, so plenty of people did go to see it. I mean,
absolutely. Boxing Day, Stoke, as mentioned, 2-1 winners home to Manchester United.
Yes.
That year's Christmas top 40, Joe. What are we illegally recording from the Christmas chart?
I don't know if I'd recorded, but I'm drawn to number 3. We All Stand Together by Paul McCartney and the Frog Chorus. Because when you mention Paul McCartney, now it's fair to say he's had a long career and he's had a bit of success. But people will always mention the Frog Chorus. Like, what about the Frog Chorus? Now, okay, it's not Eleanor Rigby, but come on, it was Christmas time and the kids had a bit of fun with it. And it got to number 3. But people threw it around as a dark allegation.
Yeah, a lot of people were clearly buying it and will still have it knocking around. And do you know what? Yeah. My brother was one, and I've mentioned this before as well. He bought the picture disc, and the picture disc was it was Paul McCartney and Rupert Burr with their arm around each other, and the cutout. So you'd have the cutout of Paul McCartney's head to the left, I think it was. It wasn't a completely circular. You had the circular element of the record, but there was added vinyl cutouts of which I don't think I'd ever seen before. Do They Know It's Christmas is Band-Aid is at number 1. Last Christmas, number 2. Paul McCartney, of course, number 3. Nellie the Elephant Toy Dolls at number 4. It's an interesting top end.
Madonna was number 5, and she was just beginning to become Madonna. She was just beginning to break, late 1984. And number 6. The Power of Love by Frankie Goes to Hollywood. Now, that always gets mentioned and referred to and played at Christmas time, but it's not a Christmas record at all. Nope. And the thing is, I remember hearing the line, "I'll protect you from the hooded claw." And I thought that was really vampire-y and really gothy and quite dramatic. And because I'm doing this recently, I Googled Hooded Claw. And Hooded Claw is a character from the kids' cartoon program Wacky Races.
That's right.
Hooded Claw.
Hooded Claw.
Hooded Claw was Penelope Pitstop's nemesis, and I thought it was going to be with some great big grand monster or something. I'll protect you from the Hooded Claw.
Yeah. He was.
And number 10.
No, number 10. Yeah, Shout.
Shout by Tears for Fears. That was a big hit. And that was a big album, Songs from the Big Chair. They're one of those bands who never really occurred to me until I watched Donnie Darko. And Head Over Heels is in the film, on the soundtrack for Donnie Darko. Oh, God, that's striking. What a good song. They were really good. Probably too late to enjoy it at the time, but...
Truly excellent. We'll ignore Gary Glitter at number 8, Joe.
Got...
Foreigner I want to know what love is. I can remember my sister playing that to death around about that time.
Yeah.
Nick Kershaw,
Yacht
the riddle
Rock.
at number. Yeah, absolutely. The riddle, Nick Kershaw at number 12. We've got a bit of Black Lace at number 14.
Yeah, it was Christmas.
Yeah, it's Christmas. There are quite a lot of Christmas centric and party tunes knocking around. Eurythmics Sex Crime 1984 is a fine tune. I'll be recording that one. And as we move down the charts, you've even got a reprise of Wizard. I wish it could be Christmas every day at number 23. I'm flagging that up, but I'm not recording it. And then Wild Boys number 31.
Yeah, that was their attempt to break into heavy metal, apparently, because Duran Duran actually, despite what it felt like at the time, their big heroes was rock and Velvet Underground and experimental stuff from the 70s and 60s, and this was their attempt to get some of that ground, but didn't really work out.
Absolutely. Ian McCulloch throws out a single track as he takes a break from all things Echo and the Bunnymen, and that's at peaking number 51, so below the watermark of the top 40. It was in the charts for 4 weeks, and this was as high as it got. So it was back to all things Echo and the Bunnymen after this this deviation. But all good stuff. So as a definitive, Joe, you're recording a song illegally from the top 40. Which one are you going to go for?
Probably the Frankie one, The Power of Love, I think. Probably that one, yeah.
Excellent choice. March 30th, 1985, 7,371 spectators in attendance at the Victoria Ground to see Stoke defeat Arsenal 2-0.
Yeah.
The match of the day cameras have been there, and we've got to wait for Jimmy Hill to appear later in the evening. Yeah. What are we going to be watching on TV while we wait for this, Joe? I'll give you the rundowns of what's been on Grandstand and World of Sport. Although you'll have been at the Victoria, but it's Grand National Day, so the Grandstand.
So it would have been Match of the Day special.
Yes, with highlights of a rerun of the Grand National as well. So it's highly Grand National centric on Grandstand. And while you're at the Victoria Ground, there is some international rugby, the second half of Ireland versus England live from Lansdowne Road, and a review of
second half.
Yeah, just the second half, and a review of France versus Wales in Paris earlier in the afternoon. Over on World of Sport, they've got the usual kind of mad mix of things. Wrestling from Southend, on the ball at 12:50. Indoor bowls, the Croft Original British Open from Darlington, introduced by Elton Welsby, who's our man on the scene. Racing from Lingfield, back to the bowls. Yeah, it bats between Lingfield and
World of Sport used to have the ITV7.
They did indeed.
7 races. Yeah,
that's very, very correct. BBC, actually, we've done the BBC a bit of a disservice there. The first half of the Ireland-England game was over on BBC Two, so they've done one of those classic switch over for the through the evening, waiting for match of the day, which is starting at 10:05. On this occasion, beyond Grandstand, so you're probably just getting in through the door after the glory of defeating Arsenal. Jeff, we've got a final.
I think I would have hovered around, and at 9:00 I would have watched Bergerac. Bergerac, it sort of replaced Shoestring, if you remember Shoestring.
I remember Shoestring.
Yeah.
Yep.
I preferred Shoestring, but Bergerac was all right. It was tolerable. But what I would do after Match of the Day, I would probably switch over to ITV for the second half of Alvida's Ain Pet.
Yes.
Yeah.
Most definitely. And that doesn't appear to, I mean, whether that's a repeat or not. My particular TV guide is not telling us whether things are repeats or not. BBC before all that, Doctor Who, Terry and June, Hooper, Burt Reynolds stars in a comedy tribute to the world of Hollywood stuntmen. 1978 film also starring Sally Field, who seemed to be in most Burt Reynolds films at that point in time. Jean Michael, Vincent and Brian Keith dynasty. The mortgage. Despite her murder charge, Alexis is determined to take Blake for every last cent. Jeff continues his frantic search for Fallon, as the aforementioned Bergerac. Over on ITV Beyond World of Sport, we've got different strokes. Arnold saves the squirrel. Arnold collects protest letters after his favourite TV programme is cancelled. Robin of Sherwood at 5:35. The Fame game introduced by Tim Brooke Taylor. As well as singers, comics, and variety acts, there will be a chance for performers who were runners-up during the series. So it's kind of like a bit of a talent show that's totally skipped my memory banks. All-Star Secrets with Michael Parkinson and guests. The Price is Right, presented by Leslie Crowder. TJ Hooker, the episode Gang War. Hooker assists a close friend who is trying to begin a program to bring peace between the neighbourhood's rival gangs. And while Match of the Day is on ITV are throwing out Tales of the Unexpected, Auf Wiedersehen, Pat. BBC Two, always with the esoteric stuff. We've got Saturday Cinema 2, The Prince and the Showgirl. Laurence Olivier's Prince, Regent of Carpathia, falls for Marilyn Monroe's provocative American chorus girl against a background of the 1911 coronation. This is followed by the day the universe changed. The Rosen Cavalier, Sir Georg Sotil, directs Richard Strauss's opera in the new Royal Opera production with Kiri Takanawa, who's yet to be a dame, and Anne Howells is part of this as Octavian. Russell Harty, they even throw in a bit of Russell Harty at 10:55, who's talking to the poet and historian and raconteur A.L. Rouse, who's sharing shares his Oxford memories, rugby special highlights of the Five Nations later that day. Channel 4, Brookside Omnibus, obviously at 5:05. You've got Other Side of the Tracks. Paul Gambaccini reflects on the past struggles and glories of Brian Ferry and takes a look at the classical record market with the help of Placido Domingo. And more, Sir Georg Sottel, last in the series. We've got Credo, My World and Welcome to It. Seal in the Bedroom, cartoonist John Munro's mother arrives for a visit, and it's all the provocation he needs to escape to his imaginary world in which his mother becomes a seal. Channel 4 doing mad things. The Green Line. And there's championship basketball and curling, but they've put that up against the day.
I remember when Channel 4 started,
they showed a lot of
basketball was a big selling point for it, because it had never been, I don't know if basketball had ever been live in any form in British television, but they were big on the basketball, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And anything in particular that's standing out to you there, Joe?
Stoke beating Arsenal.
Stoke beating Arsenal. Magnificent stuff. And then all that leaves us with, on April the 20th, Joe, a 2-0 defeat at home to the champions-elect Everton is enough to confirm relegation. No. Tell us a bit about that day while I look up some back page headlines.
Right. Now, the thing is about that day, it didn't seem to occur. It wasn't that, it's the day when relegation was confirmed, but it didn't actually seem that clear cut on that day because we'd known for months that we were going down. That was just another defeat. And I think after I got home and my brother said to me that we were down, and, just think, well, we've been down since October. So it wasn't that much of a shock. It was probably more interesting seeing the team who were about to win the league, than anything else. So I remember there was in that game against Everton, there was a big fight between our youngster Chris Maskery and Kevin Sheedy. And it was a big brawl. That's probably the most memorable thing about the game. And they beat us 2-0 and bought thousands with them because we're about to win the league. Yeah. And that's it. But when it came to the moment of relegation, it was sort of neither here nor there because we'd known we were going down for so long. And there was no comeback coming. There was no miracle, 1984 type miracle coming.
No, not at all, not at all. So yeah, the writing had long been on the wall, and the actual day didn't
the
really
day wasn't.
Amongst the back page headlines, Joe, in the week leading up to the Everton game. Luton Town must stay in the First Division or face the danger of defections from one of the country's most promising young teams. Huge question marks over the futures of Brian Steen, Ricky Hill, and all of Luton's associated players. There's a lot of pressure at Kenilworth Road, Joe. A lot of pressure.
Yeah. Well, they did stay in, didn't they? And the thing is, as soon as you might think it's cynical, but as soon as they got rid of the plastic pitch, they went down. So, in 92.
92, indeed. The plastic pitch did them.
Yeah.
I mean, they played on grass to get to back to the First Division and played on it for a season or two to stay there. I can remember Liverpool going there, and I think was it a 3-3 draw?
Yeah.
And, on a shocker of a pitch. And if you can dig out the highlights of that one, and kind of like it does kind of like make you think, yeah, I kind of get why you turned your pitch plastic. There's trouble at Highbury as well, Joe. David O'Leary is considering his future with Arsenal after a snub over his testimonial match. Keeper Pat Jennings, who quits this season after 7 years at the club, has been allowed to jump the queue with a game against Tottenham on May the 8th.
Is that what's annoyed David O'Leary?
Yeah, that's what's upset David O'Leary. It's upset David O'Leary that Pat Jennings has been allowed to jump the testimonial queue ahead of him. The game's landing on May the 8th.
Funny, you know what's funny, Stephen, is that I can remember even that point thinking it was a bit, questioned the ethics of players who earn very good money having a testimonial, and that was that long ago. Yeah.
Yep.
Now, I mean, a lot of them now, to their credit, will have a testimonial, give it to good causes, which is to their credit, But
they will. The Jack Steggles in the Daily Mirror, he declares that May the 8th, the date for Pat Jennings' testimonial, it's VE Day, and the long-serving O'Leary is ready to go to war over what he regards as a kick in the teeth. The back pages of the Daily Mirror finding any excuse to bring in war connotations, Joe. Quoted in this article, O'Leary says, "I have nothing at all against Pat, but I will have been with Arsenal for 12 years on May the 2nd, and that's almost twice as long as him," said O'Leary. "In all that time, I've never given a moment's trouble, and this sort of thing makes you wonder whether loyalty pays off. I was expecting a testimonial game, I'll be honest about that, and the fact that I've not got one has made me bitter. I've had a word with manager Don Howe. He understands the position and has been very good about it." Meanwhile, skipper Graham Ricks was losing no sleep over the chances that he missed during Saturday's 1-1 draw with Nottingham Forest that could cost the Gunners a place in Europe. Obviously, no one will get that place in Europe by the end of the season.
Well, tragically so.
Tragically so. So they are some of the back page headlines, Joe. Troubled times at Highbury. There's arguments going on over testimonials. Luton Town living under the fear of relegation and losing their star players, some of which fine players there.
Fantastic players.
But given everything that's going on at the Victoria Ground, no real sympathies for what's going on at Highbury and Kenilworth Road.
Well, certainly none for Highbury. Let's just look at it that way. But I mean, reflecting on that era of football, though, I mean, it's quite bleak. I mean, remember, shortly after everything which happened at the end of the season, which, we know what happened in that last month of the season. I mean, the BBC, when there was a TV blackout, willfully chose snooker above because snooker got higher ratings, and they were probably questioning whether it was appropriate to be associated with football. And when people talk now about football was always better in the old days, not necessarily.
Yeah, swings and roundabouts. In terms of modern football, we've from the old currency, we've gained, but we've also lost. We lose with one hand, we gain with another. Joe, it's been a joy to do Stoke City 1984-85 and all associated tangents around it. Have you enjoyed your boys took a hell of a beating debut?
Thank you. Yes, thank you for inviting me. Yeah, it's been fun. I've enjoyed it.
Excellent. And Joe, you can go away and consider another topic. We would be delighted to have you back.
Thank you.
For another match at some point.
Thank you. I'll be in touch about that possibility.
All that leaves me to do is say thank you for listening. Spread the word. Subscribe when you can, and join us again for another module on Your Boys Took a Hell of a Beating. Thank you and goodbye.